Let's move across our border now. And the Southern African Development Community decided on Thursday on a regional response to the violence in northern Mozambique. But SADC has been aware of these attacks since 2017. So why action only now? I'm joined by independent journalist and author Joseph Hanlon. He's written a fascinating article on the Daily Maverick website headlined "Mozambique's Frelimo Gambled Everything on Gas and Lost." He joins me now. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Really, we do appreciate it. I'm just wondering why it's taken so long to see a regional response. Can we blame SADC, or should we rather blame the Mozambican government, which we understand has been quite reluctant to admit that it can't control this itself?
It's not just that they don't want to admit they can't control it. They don't want to admit the causes of it. And the causes of the war are internal, and it's poverty, growing inequality, and especially that nothing from the gas and other minerals like rubies are reaching ordinary people. And so in 2017, we had began an insurgency of people saying, well, they had to challenge the government to create a future for themselves. Now, the government doesn't want to admit this. They want it to be an external aggression. They want it to be ISIS. They want it to be something else. And so every time they talk to SADC, SADC says, well, we want to investigate what this war is about. And Mozambique says, no, you've got to give us help, but don't ask what the war is about. And so SADC has decided that they would send their own investigating team, which was not exactly what the Mozambicans wanted. The Mozambicans just want donations.
Your article is fascinating, and you speak about this massive offshore liquid gas find, which I understand was discovered in 2010. From what you write, it's the second largest find off Africa. You say that the Frelimo government were just too much onto it. They expected too much out of it. They took an early share of the investment. They didn't create conditions for the people of Cabo Delgado to actually benefit, and we're hoping that it would happen naturally down the line. I wonder if you could take us back to 2010. What has gone wrong with this huge offshore gas find, and why it has taken so long for any trickle down at all?
Well, that's two separate questions. The gas find as well was developed. It takes a long time to develop a gas project like this, although there have been increasing delays. And the original projections were absolutely huge, that there were going to be 100 million tons a year of liquefied natural gas, and that gas would be starting to be produced from 2019. Now, a whole set of things have happened. One is, most important probably, is the environment, and that the gas was seen as a transition fuel. It would be a fuel which would replace coal, and therefore it would be environmentally friendly. Increasingly, it's been seen as a fossil fuel, which also creates carbon, less perhaps than oil or coal, but still carbon. And so there's huge pressure on the companies not to be producing gas. And so that's led a number of investors to drop out of gas companies, lenders to stop lending to gas projects. And it's led to a reduction in projections of how much gas can be consumed. So that's part of it. And there are 3 different companies involved in the gas. Total, the French company is doing the block that has started. Eni, an Italian company, is doing a quite small floating platform. And the big one in the middle was ExxonMobil. And they have totally postponed their investment and highly unlikely to go ahead just because they don't think there's a market for the gas. So what has happened is that the gas itself, the amount of gas to be produced and the amount of profits keeps going down and down and down. And now the war looks like it will delay even further. Total has been forced to withdraw from its project. So very little gas will be produced in this at all. So there are going to be very few profits. Now the problem on the other side of this is that the Mozambican elite has taken all of the money. And so nothing is trickling down. They, first of all, in 2012, just 2 years after the discovery, took a loan for $2 billion, which was largely fraudulent, and said, okay, well, it will get paid out of the gas profits. And there aren't going to be any gas profits from the look of it now. So that's the situation we're in.
That is pretty dire, because I think that there were some hopes that once this project got up and running, if it can get up and running fully, that things might be able to be solved. I'm wondering about corruption, and you speak a lot and you write a lot about corruption, but I'd love you to tell us a little bit more about how much corruption is at the heart of the problem in Mozambique. Years ago, I think it was the Mosgas project, they had a very firm rule that any of their employees found to be involved in any bribery or corruption would be immediately fired. Is corruption baked into the way business is done in Mozambique?
It is now, and that's a function of the shock therapy structural adjustment that was done 30 years ago in Mozambique by the IMF and the World Bank and the international donors, and they said everything has to be done totally by the free market. There can be no intervention to support peasants because the free market has to do it. But we will support the creation of oligarchs, big men. And so you have an economic system in which you have this powerful set of Frelimo figures who control business. Now, at the same time, the IMF said that we have to push down wages. And so they pushed down wages to the point where nurses and teachers were below the absolute poverty line. And so nurses and teachers and other civil servants said, well, we'll get money anywhere we can. We have to in order to eat. So they took bribes from the parents and from people going to hospitals. And that has built into the system total corruption. And so nothing gets done without people getting paid. And for investments of any sort, businesses of any sort, you have to have a Mozambican partner. And this is now normal, and the international community has totally accepted this with respect to the gas projects. So the whole system has been corrupted, has been turned into a patronage system, with the international community going along with all of this, saying, well, we want to make money ourselves with our investments in the gas. So everybody just looks at the gas and doesn't worry about governance. I mean, Mozambique, Frelimo stole the elections in 2019. The European Union wrote a devastating report detailing it, and yet the international community and the European Union itself said, well, yeah, you stole the elections, but you've got this wonderful gas, and so long as you let our companies invest, we'll let you go. And now you have a corrupted system in which some people in Cabo Delgado felt that they were losing out so badly they had to go to war to fight this, and that in turn is reducing the gas profits. So the very corruption seems to have led us into a classic resource curse in which only the elite benefit and everybody else doesn't.
So I want to ask you a final question. First of all, what do you think, and you have been watching and writing on Mozambique since the 70s, what do you think is actually going to happen in the coming weeks and months in that region specifically? And what do you think should ideally happen over this issue?
Wow. What do I think happened? I genuinely don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what Total is going to do, whether they will come back, whether any of the gas companies will go back. But I think we have to assume that gas production is going to be very low. Now, what we should be doing is what we should have done 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Invest in agriculture, invest in production, invest in ordinary people. Support the development of an economy that creates thousands and thousands of jobs. Gas doesn't create jobs. It creates lots of money, they hope, but it doesn't create jobs. And what we need is an economy in Mozambique that creates jobs and creates incomes for people. And the first thing that you should do is what most people still do in Mozambique, is farming. Mozambican farmers have no machinery, no fertilizer. Mozambique is one of the only countries in the region that doesn't subsidize fertilizer. Malawi does it, other countries do it. So you should start subsidizing small-scale farmers, which is what Europeans do, what the United States does, and create, first of all, an agricultural economy, because that will create a rural economy, that will be a demand for manufactured goods, and you create an economy. At the moment, we have no economy because everybody's been waiting for the gas.
Thank you so much. It's been absolutely fascinating to speak to you this evening. Independent journalist and author Joseph Hanlon, and his article, Mozambique's Frelimo Gambled Everything on Gas and Lost, can be read on Daily Maverick, and it's an absolutely fascinating read.